curriculum board meeting, March 10th, to order. If we could call the roll, please.
Okay, Ms. Burkmeyer,
I am here in Chesterfield, Michigan.
Mr. Moses,
I am here in New Baltimore, Michigan.
thank you. Mr. Green,
I am here in Titusville, Florida.
Titusville, Florida. Ms. Knox,
Here in Chesterfield, Michigan.
thank you. Mr. Richards,
I'm here in Warren, Michigan.
thank you. Mr. DeRue,
Here in Chesterfield, Michigan.
thank you. Mr. Middlestat, New Baltimore.
Okay, if we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so first on the agenda is the reconfirmation of learning plan.
Yes. Good evening, board. Tim, I believe you're going to set that up for me again. All right. Good evening, board. We're here again at our monthly reconfirmation. And so we move through these slides again. March 10th, coincidentally enough, the anniversary of the first case in Michigan of coronavirus, but we'll go to the next slide, please. And as you know, every 30 days, we go through our continuity, our COVID extended learning plan and talk about how three things on the next slide we'll go over again, what we review is how instruction is going to be delivered, take public comments from parents and guardians, specifically on the reconfirmation of the learning plan, and we'll review our weekly two-way interaction rates. So in pre-kindergarten, everything is going the same as it has been, and majority is in person. There are just a couple that receive some educational hard copies at their request, but majority is in person. The next slide. As we know, our K-5 elementary is in person and a virtual option. The virtual option will include live synchronous instruction, which is live streaming, and also some asynchronous or pre-recorded or pre-made assignments. We have our separate teachers for both face-to-face and virtual classes, and we are using the Schoology learning management system. The secondary level, we are sent the same since January 11th for high school and middle schoolers. We've been in person, and for those that wish to be, we also have the virtual option. And at the secondary level, it's a little bit different. As we know, virtual includes live instruction and may also have asynchronous pre-recorded instructional videos or assignments, and using the same teachers are teaching both of the groups of students and utilizing the Schoology learning management system. So as far as our two-way interactions, they're pretty consistent. They're generally right there in the 97% range. You can see, again, the week goes from Tuesday to Wednesday. And then we are still waiting on this week's numbers, so we're always 1 week behind. So as you can see, consistent in 97%, except for the week of 210 to 216, went down to 95. That may have been due to our midwinter break and some snow days and different things there. So, but we remain pretty consistent, right at 97% of confirmed two-way interactions. So I want to bring again, just to everyone's attention that where you can find the information on case reporting. I know that there were some questions as if we had a lull there for a while with, again, I think a contribution to that was the midwinter break and some snow days where we had some natural separation and our cases were quiet for quite a while. And if you review them today, you'll find that not so quiet. This week's been very busy, especially at our high school and other buildings. So we have seen an increase in cases lately. You can find those on the COVID-19 page under COVID-19 case reporting. So we're at that point where we would take comments and or from the community and the board.
Okay, so right now, parents or guardians of students enrolled in the district, I have the ability to give comments to the board and to the district regarding our COVID-19 learning plan. If you have comments that are otherwise not, regarding our learning plan, if you could hold those to the open comment later on in the session. Okay, I see Emma McCauley.
Hi, yes, I'm actually reaching out and thank you for allowing people to ask questions. I really appreciate that. I guess for me, I am just curious if there has been any conversation specifically at the elementary level in regards to going back to the extra hour of curriculum. I'm really kind of concerned with the COVID plan at this point. I have 3 elementary students, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, and kindergarten. And every day they are missing an hour of learning in person. And so every day they're missing at least 1 lesson. Over the year, that adds up very quickly. Obviously, that's 20 lessons a month times the 7-8 months that we're in school. So I'm just really concerned that my kids are going to be not prepared for next year in regards to testing, in regards to being prepared to, just being in class the amount of time they need to be in class and learning what they need to learn. We expect so much from them from a testing standpoint. We expect so much of them from a learning standpoint. And we're spending time at home in the evenings doing lessons, doing packets, doing all these extra things, but it's not the same as when they're learning from their teacher. So I just wanted to voice my opinion and my concern that we are still losing an hour every day as part of curriculum.
Okay. Thank you. We will be looking probably towards, the next school year and things as we continue to roll along. And we are definitely, I know Mr. Rathbun and I have discussed this a little bit, trying to take some of that into consideration and make, trying to roll with, our changes as we come. So that is definitely something that's been discussed so far. And we will continue to discuss it and try to determine the appropriate time to make that change if we're able to.
Can I add a little bit to that, Lisa?
Sure.
I just want to make sure that parents know that we work hard on professional development days too. The teachers look at the planning and pacing that include all the key concepts for the whole school year. So it's not like we're trying or we're planning things and not including all the concepts that are required for the school year.
Okay. All right. I see Crystal Ortega.
Okay, just one thing, at the secondary level, aside from the extra hour part, which you just answered, my concern would be, I have a high schooler, is, just recently last week, one of his teachers emailed out, that she has picked up an additional class. So that now that she is now limited, to being available to students due to another teacher being out for whatever the reason is. She's now teaching an Algebra 2 class versus the one class that she had. So my concern, I guess, with that would be is now obviously the reduced schedule, being the hour less in school, being less available to the students that she has been teaching, starting second semester, because it is a one semester course. She just made mention that she is having limited availability. So my concern is, are we overburdening our teachers with this learning plan, which is working? I mean, we're doing what we can. It's a moving target. If that's something that's just kind of a one-time thing, I know we've had staffing issues and we're kind of all, dealing with that part, but just so maybe the board can kind of take a look at that, maybe at that level, to kind of see if that's just a one-time thing for one teacher, or is it more than one? So that way the students are still getting the most out of their teachers face to face. My student is back face to face, plus they're obviously having virtual students that they're teaching. So the only option she has is her after school prep hour versus having, any kind of break during the day, if that makes sense. So that would kind of be my only concern at that level at this point, in time of the year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mhm.
I am not seeing, Sarah Ledford.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just kind of wanted to echo what one of the previous parents said. At the elementary school level, I know multiple parents that have expressed concerns to me as well. We've kind of talked about it quite a bit, possibly getting back that extra hour. I also have friends of mine that are teachers in other districts. When in talking to them, they have expressed a lot of concern about their students being behind and how the shortened day is really affecting them as teachers trying to get in what they want to get in. So I just kind of wanted to make it known that there are other parents that kind of feel the same way and have the same concerns when it comes to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Stephanie Richards.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So I am curious if we are going to remain with tutoring only being available virtually, or if there are going to be in-person tutoring available. My son is face-to-face. He does better face-to-face, and going to school face-to-face and tutoring virtually is not really beneficial. So it'd be great if we could get back to face-to-face tutoring. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any others. So at this time, we'll open the floor for any motions to approve or our reconfirmation of our learning plan, or if any board members have comments.
I'll make the motion to reconfirm it.
I have a couple of questions actually also.
Okay, let's, Mr. Moses has a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion so we can have the discussions.
Okay, so a motion to reconfirm, seconded by Mr. Green. Go ahead, Mr. Richards.
Yeah, either for Mr. McDonald or Mr. Rathbun, is there any concerns, when looking at the COVID numbers at the high school? Do we have any concerns, with the amount of positive cases and the number of students we're quarantining? Also, has any policy change when it comes to the social distancing or the current COVID guidelines?
Yeah, there's always concerns when you see numbers increase, Todd, and you could please jump in if you'd like. As far as any policy change or anything, when we addressed this in the beginning of the school year, we knew that going back face to face, we would not be able to adhere to 6 feet social distance. That was always made abundantly clear. When we take every other precaution we can with cleaning desks, with spreading out where we could, like in the commons. If you've been in there lately, you'll see many, many more tables at all the secondary buildings. But, most of this occurred this week. And there hasn't been any policy change at this point. Todd, would you say anything different or?
Yeah, I mean, I think, if anything, what we've seen from both the local, state, and federal government is actually a little bit of a loosening of the requirements. In fact, the CDC has now said 6 feet is no longer required. It's recommended, but less than that is acceptable for schools that are returning to in-person learning. So I would say actually it's probably some of the requirements and so forth have loosened a little bit in the last several days. I think that's directly related to the fact that the vaccine is out. A number of our staff are starting to get vaccinated, and we think that will have a very positive effect going forward, in terms of being able to stay in school. And as Mr. McDonald aptly said, we're going to continue to work to make sure that we make our schools as safe as possible for our staff and our students. And we continue to monitor that and will continue to monitor that into the future.
Thank you.
I had a question or comment.
Go ahead.
Going back to the comments by a couple parents, I understand the high school going out early because they have dual tasks, both virtual and in face-to-face. And I know even with that hour of off, it really doesn't account for all the work that the staff has to do to keep up with all the virtual students along with their current students. But I guess somebody needs to remind me, why do we have to do that at the elementary level at this time? Because those teachers are teaching face-to-face and we have separate teachers doing virtual. So in the case of the secondary, I understand why we're providing that extra time. At the elementary, I don't know I guess you guys need to give me a case of why that's totally necessary. And if it's a case of money or whatever, we've got COVID funds we can apply to that. But I know if we want to keep things equal between, secondary and elementary in terms of, well, it's only fair to have both elementary and secondary teaching the same amount of time. But in this case, I don't know what the practical means and whether we can do something differently, whether it's compensation or changing some things. So at least for the next 3 months, we could provide that extra hour back. So I guess I need some feedback from the administration on why that's absolutely necessary that we have to have that hour off.
Well, Steve, I'd like to start by addressing, if you'll recall back when we first returned, there was some discussion at the board level that for pacing purposes and making sure that both were on the same pacing and that they were covering the same material and there's good collaboration back and forth. We had several board members who had pushed to have that collaboration time for the elementary. Understanding what you've said, we are looking into that, and we have taken some steps already to start looking at and trying to address the idea of adding a potential hour back at the elementary. So not quite as easy as it sounds. I wish it was quite that easy. We do have some transportation issues that we're working through. We are looking at the costing of that. We've costed it out. We think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about $70,000 to $80,000 for the remainder of the year to add that hour back because of the differential and the release times and the effect that will have on transportation. We also will need to sit down and talk with our ABEA partners and talk with them about what that looks like, because in our LOA, you may remember we did scope out a little bit of the prep time for each of our teachers and how much prep time would be there. So we will have to revisit that and sit down and talk with our ABA partners on this. And we plan on doing that in the very near future here. So those plans are in the works. We're looking at that and we're addressing the obstacles that stand in the way of that right now.
No, I totally understand it, but that's why we have to reconfirm this plan once a month. And I understand the transportation issue, but it's a matter of having bus drivers have to wait for the half hour. It's not that we can't do it, because the elementary is the last children that are bused. So It's not an issue that it can't be done. It's just a matter of money. And we're getting all these COVID funds coming in, and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And to me, $70,000 and costs just for transportation would be a benefit. And of course, we have to talk with our partners on the ABEA, of course. But like I said, we've got COVID funds. It's a matter of we need to compensate our staff to do this for 3 months. It's just, and I guess I understand you're working on it, but I would challenge you to have at least a plan or something laid out by the next board meeting so we could review that, because time is, every day is another day that we don't have an hour. And as you take 1 hour times 3,000 kids, or how many we have in the elementary, that's 3,000 hours a day we're losing. So I'm glad that you're working on it, but we got to get really serious about this and see what we can do at that level, because there's really no reason other than what our initial plans. And yeah, I understood we kind of scrambled and want to make sure the virtual and elementary are coordinated, but at this point I think we're pretty practiced at how we're doing this thing, both virtual and face to face. But I think at least make a good go at it and have some real reasons, because if I'm a parent out there, I'm looking at this thing, and you and I think the rest of the board and everybody in administration knows it's just not as simple as clicking it back on again. But I think we owe our community an answer that's saying, okay, that makes a lot of sense. We understand why this is the way it is. But if it's a matter of, well, we just don't have, it's going to cost us $70,000 and we got to negotiate, that's just we got to step it up a bit here and try to do what we need to do. I think everybody's doing their best they can, but we got to, again, think a little bit outside of what we're current scenario and look into this stuff. So.
Yeah, I agree. I guess I agree, Steve, that I don't think the $70,000 should be an impediment. I shared that more to say that, we are looking at all aspects of adding back that hour, and we are working on it today in hopes of being able to add back that hour in the near future.
Well, even at the secondary level, it's just a matter of negotiating that everybody has to stay an extra half hour and we'll compensate you for that time. I mean, all the students deserve extra time, but the staff also deserves to have the time to do the work. And I know firsthand at the secondary levels that it's a real challenge trying to keep up with all the virtual stuff. And that was the best solution we had at the time. But I know it's pretty overwhelming for many of the staff to keep up with Schoology and Power School and everything else. Anyway, thanks.
Just Todd, would it benefit at all to maybe send this to a committee maybe in the next week, and maybe we could get all the powers that be that need to discuss, and maybe get 3 board members in there to have a recommendation maybe prior to next meeting?
You know,
That
Mike,
would help.
you know, certainly we will cooperate with what the board wants to do. I think that this is an operational issue. I think we do have people who have a lot of experience in that regard, and I think we can work something out. I don't think there's I'm not trying to suggest, I guess, that there are impediments that we can't overcome. What I'm trying to suggest is we are working on those and we hope to have an answer soon. So I don't know if this is, you know, I don't mean to suggest that we've reached a point in time where been a breakdown or we have an impediment we can't overcome. I think this is something certainly administration can handle. If we do have any problems, I'd be happy, you know, to bring the board in. But at this point in time, I'm very confident that administration can work with, like I said, our ABA partners to remedy this and come out with a workable solution.
Yeah, I think a good goal would be, we'd like to see something happen by the fourth quarter. I mean, I don't know when that happens, but I would think you'd set a target out, and again, if you don't set yourself a target and a goal to get there, sometimes it's more difficult to get there. But I would think that we would target the fourth quarter to see what we can do to provide more face-to-face instruction.
Yep, that's exactly what we're doing, Steve.
Okay.
Would it be worthwhile or too ambitious to be able to say, you know, that maybe we plan for after spring break, possibly to return?
That's kind of that would fall in line with our fourth quarter, really starting.
Right.
Our fourth quarter. Yep. That's what we're targeting. Absolutely.
Okay. So maybe now we would have to, I'm assuming we would have to edit our plan at that point. So possibly if we have to redo it at the next board meeting, can we do that with a future date, you know, assigned to it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we will look at that. Mr. Middlestat, I echo your sentiment. I'd love to have the kids back in school as soon as, you know, more, you know, typical to our normal as fast as we can. Certainly, you know, I think particularly at the secondary level, I think there's a lot of a bit more hardship on the teachers to try and juggle, you know, the virtual classrooms as well as the in-person. So that one might take a little bit more, in my personal opinion, it might take a little bit more, you know, thought and effort to try to work through that process. But at the elementary level, it seems like there's maybe, I agree with you. Well, I know the pacing was brought up. You know, pacing to me is something that we should already have been doing to a large extent. So I'd like to see us, you know, be able to move forward at this point, and particularly, hopefully, you know, ahead of the next school year. So, you know, maybe assuming everything stays in an upward improving motion with COVID in the direction how, you know, COVID is across the nation, that maybe by next school year, we will be even much more closer, if not ideal, you know, back to elementary as it was in the past is my personal goal. And I've expressed that with Todd, and I know that he is working to try and make that happen to our ability as we can. So I do hear you though, and I agree. I would like to see it maybe sooner rather than later. Any other?
Well, the thing too is I don't know the inner workings and how things go. So to me, I know a little bit more how the schools run, but there's also little details that I'm not quite aware with, and I just don't want to get a bunch of teachers and staff upset that I don't understand what's going on. I need to understand to help them do the best job they can do with their students. So I just want to make sure I put that disclaimer in there that I'm not trying to cause any grief or any hardship on anyone. I just want to see what we can do and challenge everybody that we've got ourselves in a pretty good position and we're rolling along, but I'd like to see us step it up if we can and just kind of ramp it up so that we're somewhere in between now and where we want to be next year. So thanks.
Yep. Did any other board members have comments or questions? Okay, so we had a motion to reaffirm the learning plan, and it was seconded. We can call the roll.
Mr.
I'll second.
Moses, Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Burkmeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Drew,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestate, yes.
All right, motion passes. So we'll move on back to Mr. McDonald and Mr. Wedge for a update on the summer school plans that we've been discussing as of late.
Mhm. Good evening, board. Mr. McDonald and I would like to share with you an overview of our summer school offerings for our students for this coming summer. And can you go to the next slide, please? And obviously this summer or this year, the calendar year hasn't been a normal year. And we want to give extra offerings and opportunities for our students and to support them and reinforce skills for the summer for students. So, we're looking at, we were remote for spring, we were remote for the start of the school year, and we have reduced school days. So we want to offer some support for students beyond that. Next slide. We always offer summer school, but this year we want to beef that up. We want to make sure that we're offering more for our students. And instead of having one session, we're going to have 2 sessions this year. So we're going to offer that double, and then we're going to include some enrichment programs. We're going to see how many students we have that are going to participate, but we would like to offer a virtual option for students. And we want to increase the teacher pay for the students, and maybe hopefully, because I know this has been a strenuous year for our teachers, and we want to encourage them to teach for us this summer. So I know that the ISD is offering money, and we're going to be adding to that pay. So there is going to be an increase in the teacher pay compared to last year. So this summer is going to look quite a bit different from previous summers past. Last summer, we had the Kinder Connect and first grade fundamentals class, and we're going to continue that. It focuses on pre-reading skills and writing skills, focusing on the components of reading, which are phonological awareness and letter sounds, oral language, vocabulary comprehension, and writing fluency. We're going to be sure to assess the students as they enter the class, and then also we're going to do post assessments given to the students so that we can see what their growth abilities are and the levels that they're coming in at. So that is our Kinder Connect. That would be incoming kindergarten and incoming first grade. A new course that we're going to have this summer is Summer Scholars, and this is intended for students with individual identified needs. This is for students entering 2nd grade through 5th grade, and it's focusing on literacy and math. And this is, like I said, a new course, and we're really going to have invitations for students that have individual reading plans, or they're in our MTSS, our systems of support programs in the buildings that need that focused supports and interventions. So we're really excited about this offering. It's something new, and we're going to make sure that we're focusing on those students and inviting those students that really need that. But it will be offered to all students, 2nd through 5th grade. And next is the STEM, go back one more, sorry. STEM and literacy. And this was offered last year, was very popular. And I know a lot of the students and the parents really thought that this was a great offering that we had. It's meant for students 2nd through 4th, going into 2nd and 4th through 4th. And then it's a science-based text. So it's basically looking at student engagement in science, but it's including that literacy piece, that they're looking at informational text and developing their comprehension, vocabulary, and fluency skills. So that's coming back, and that was very popular last year. So we're excited to have that offering again. Next slide. We're really looking at 5th grade band. We know that we heard from Mr. Middlestat last meeting, and we've heard from other the band teachers and for middle school and high school. And we know that we want to give that opportunity for students that are going to be going into 6th grade, where normally we do have band during the school year before school starts throughout the year. But this year we weren't able to do that, of course. So now we want to make sure that we have that opportunity for the students to have that band fitting that they would normally have and be exposed to the instruments sometime during the summer. So we're working on that. I'm meeting with the band teachers on Friday to work through that. So that is an opportunity. And like I said, we're going to be looking at other enrichment opportunities also. Math Mindset is a program that we had last school year, last summer, I'm sorry. And then that's a program that it's research based, and it's built for students to build their confidence and in their math abilities. And we saw some great growth in students last year, and we want to offer that again this next year. Another new course is, oh, I'm sorry, I think Mr. McDonald was going to do this one, just talking about middle school literacy. But like you can see, we have a lot of great new programs that we're going to be offering students, and hopefully they'll be taking advantage of that.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. You come back and you already start stealing my slides.
Sorry.
That's all right. But any questions for Terry on those elementary offerings?
I do have a couple real quick. Are we doing anything for the 504 students or the students with the special education?
That's the summer scholars. Yep. And so that is meant for remediation mostly. So that is for the students that it's for all students, but particularly if they have certain needs identified in the classroom. Like I said, we would offer those like we did last year for some of the programs. We do special invitations for students that have individual reading plans, and they're through the MTSS program.
Great,
Yep.
thank you.
All right, then I'll move through some of the secondary programs. And, you know, Terry covered the Math Mindset. We have a new program where we're going to work on literacy. So the math was covered with the mindset, and then the literacy in speaking with the middle school administration and staff. We're seeing really good results using the IXL program. The beauty with the IXL program is it will individualize the lessons. It starts with an assessment, and it's computer adapted, so it meets the student where they are and kind of moves them forward. So it's not just a canned program that, as we talked about with a special ed student or an honors student, it's going to meet that student where they're at and move them forward. So that's a new program that we're building and working on and using the IXL and other literacy essentials that we've been implementing over the last couple of years. So if we go to the next slide, please. Some additional courses that we're excited about. One is a SAT Khan Academy to also give just real individualized, that is for the juniors who are incoming juniors that are going to be looking for SAT prep. That will cover, again, a kid, all the different areas that will be covered in the SAT, the math, and the reading and writing. When we work into another program that we're excited about with our teacher cadet program, because of COVID, they weren't able to get the same experience that they normally have. We normally have teacher cadet throughout the school year, but we're looking to offer it in the summer. And the teacher cadet is for incoming 11th and 12th graders. And they would work, they would get training, and we would have a host teacher for them. They would work in the K-6 classrooms And the best part about this one, not only would we be able to give them experience and try to build our profession and give them the experience of teaching, but they also get paid. They're also going to get paid $11 an hour. So they have to commit to both sessions, so 8 weeks. But what a great summer job for a incoming 11th and 12th grade student. EL camp, that typically has been offered through the ISD. We're going to be able to offer it within our district. And that is a combination of activities. They'll focus obviously on developing the English language skills. It'll be broken down by kind of by grade ranges, so that kids are with, like, might be pre-K and kindergarten, 1, 2. They even have programs for adult English learners as well. So if parents are English learners, they would be able to, there'll be a session for them as well. Of course, we have our traditional credit recovery that we would normally run, and we're going to use the same method where these are courses that were already taken and not passed. We're going to utilize the Edgenuity program where kids would be able to recover credit towards graduation. So that kind of summarizes our traditional, focused on literacy, focused on math, traditional credit recovery and remediation programs. And if we go to the next slide, I guess I could ask any questions on those programs.
My question is how is this being scheduled? We're using the traditional time frame where we have, everybody has to attend that 8 weeks or 6 weeks, or how are we doing this?
There'll be 2 sessions, 2 4-week sessions, and students can attend one or both. That's
Okay,
coming
now-
up. That's coming up on another slide.
Okay.
Yep, no big deal.
So secondary, where's is that the slide before this one for the math?
There's middle school math. Yep. If you go back to the 6th, 7th, and 8th, the math mindset.
Okay, how about high school math?
High school math is we have the SAT prep and just credit recovery.
I think you need something in math similar to the math mindset. That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
I'm just suggesting that I would think that particularly this year has been such shortened time, math skills. If I've got less time to hone my skills, I'm sure we would have some kind of focus. And I don't know if it's more of this, you have a classroom where you have, it's not like a tutor, but somebody that says, that you may not get all those right kids in calculus or the right kids in algebra, but I would think you would have some kind of not remediation, but for kids that tended to, fall behind in math, or they need to pick up their skills because they really, as you know, that the math, when you track your math through the different grade levels, you don't want to skip a beat in terms of the next class you need to take. So if I didn't get the right algebra skills and I'm not ready for calculus or whatever, I think math is an area that I think we would, similar to what we're doing at the middle school, at the high school would be just as important. Have some focus there, and that's just my input.
Yeah, we could problem solve something different than where all the math classes are available through the Edgenuity, but we could do it in a different manner. I'm sure that's something we could develop.
Yeah, I'm just, like I said, it might be a matter of having a math teacher that has a variety of skills that you have. I don't want to call it math remediation, but math, tuning up your math skills for your next class. So that I'm sure some students have the time available in a student and they're not confident, they'd be getting, they're usually an A to B student and they'd be getting B's and C's or lower, that they want to, catch back up again. And I'm sure there's many kids that are in that situation.
Certainly.
Our students with IEP, in special education students, are they gonna be in with the general population? Are there any secondary programs for students on IEP or just the EL?
Yeah, students with IEPs are in, they take the same programs as, just like they would in a regular year.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, and you know, areas like we talked about, the math mindset, that is perfect for anybody who doesn't view themselves as a strong math student.
Hey, Joe, is any of this going to be offered virtually for the people that are still uncomfortable coming in face to face, or?
Yes, yeah, there'll be a virtual option for all of it, face to face and virtual. So what we're going to do as well is, like we talked about, offering our traditional courses where we have remediation and we have kind of the ones we just already went through. We wanted to survey number one, parents and with their students. You know, when we say parents, students, and teachers, to gather some interest. Number one, in what are they interested in taking, and then the staff as well, to see if there's additional enrichment type programs that staff may be willing to teach. And then, because the key to all this, right, we just went through a ton of programming, much more than we typically do over the summer. Some things that, you know, we certainly are trying to do is meet the needs of our staff by increasing pay. And the increase is pretty significant. And in addition to that, providing, as we'll get to the structure and some of the other things that we're going to provide, but we want to survey the needs, see what people are willing to take, and what teachers may be willing to teach in addition to the remediation, to find some other enrichment things that may be a little bit more fun. We go to the next slide. We also know that when we talk about 2 4-week sessions, 4 hours a day, 4 days a week, and we're going to cap them at 15, as long as we are able to have enough staffing, right? That's our goal, to create no more than 15. So they're small. We can social distance. We can have a group that can have a small student to teacher ratio. Provide transportation, provide food, childcare, and other SAC programs, which I know Terry could talk about a lot of the fun things that they do in those programs. But part of that survey, when you look at the 2 4-week sessions, is we're making an assumption that we'll have enough staff will want to continue to teach. You know, we just talked about how much they've gone through this school year, and also students, and how much, you know, of a challenge this school year has been as well. So our goal is to offer it up, to provide the structure, and then, you know, then recruit the staff to do it. And then hopefully the students will show up and fill these classes. So I think the surveying will help us to understand what programs, like we know certain things we have to offer, but the survey will really give us the information that we need to know what other areas are people willing to, number one, teach, and number two, come in for 4 or 8 weeks of their summer. So that's what we have planned as of right now. Terry, did you want to add anything about the SAC before we go to the dates on the next slide?
No, SAC is going to be offered for all students, kindergarten through 4th grade. And again, that's a program that we've had before. We're going to be making sure that that's in place, but that's a fun program that the students, you know, they go swimming, or they walk down to the parks, or go to Dairy Queen, different things like that. I know that there's trips planned too. So that's another fun option for students for the summer. So we will, the last slide we have here is just recapping again what Steve was asking about. Instead of 1 4-week session, we're going to have 2 4-week sessions. So the dates are June 28th through July 23rd, with having July 5th off as the observation of 4th of July. And then the second session would begin July 26th. and end on August 20th. So that would give us a week or two before our school starts again. But those are the planned dates. And like I said, this is going to be more robust this year, just having the 2 sessions and having more offerings for students. So we're really excited about what we have and what we could build. And like Joe said, we want to get some input from staff and from parents and see what they're willing to do and what they're wanting from us as far as putting the programs together. Any questions?
So if a student is taking that week off of 4th of July, they can come back and pick up wherever they're at?
They certainly can. They
Okay,
can choose session 1, they can choose session 2, or they could do both. Or
Okay.
if they're gone for 1 week, Steve, on vacation, they can pick up where they left off.
okay, because that's kind of important because it's hard to schedule these things sometime.
So at least we have,
Yep,
normally we'd have a 4-day week that week, so at least they're only missing that 3 days for
Yeah,
that 4th of July week.
And when you look at these dates and think about too, that we want to squeeze in some committee work with, looking at curriculum alignment and where we were able to, cover, or how deep we were able to cover
Yep.
each subject, that only gives us the first, the first 2 weeks when we get out of school. And then when you add these back up, after August 20th, you start orientation for the next year.
yep. Just another comment. Thanks for considering the band. I would think the 5th grade band program, you would include both current new 5th graders and then also 5th graders going into 6th, because I'm not quite sure how things are going to work out next year, but I would think the 4th graders who are going to end up taking 5th grade band and giving them I guess it kind of depends on numbers and how the band teachers discuss it, but certainly I would think if we're providing it and we can serve some additional students that way, that would be a good thing also.
Agree.
Yep. All right, that's our summer program update.
I had a question on the childcare and scheduling. I know you guys have to survey, you said to figure out what programs will run and when, or if both. I guess I would urge you to maybe really get on that quickly, only because I know that, Chesterfield and New Baltimore have their signups out for summer, the summer camps and essentially like summer childcare and summer camps, as we're speaking. So, we could have kids having to choose between this or that, or, already signed up and holding a place somewhere else. The other thing, and I know in the curriculum committee, we kind of went through a bunch of ideas, and truly this just came to me right now, sitting here, but to possibly speak with Chesterfield and New Baltimore, if we could come up with a way, maybe a discounted, since you have to pay for their programs, a discounted rate or something where we could pick up the students from those camps and bring them over if they're, if their parent wants them in, for these couple weeks in math or, in one of our programs. If we talked about transportation possibly in the past, if we might be able to pick them up at a central spot and bring them and then take them back. So I don't, especially because our SAC is only through 4th grade. So that might hit maybe some of those in between years where, if you have a 5th grader and you don't want them home alone, so they're maybe going to summer camp, but they can't come to SAC with us. So that's just kind of an idea that I had that maybe we can look into as well.
We used to have some of those older students, but it was hard to separate having such young kids with older kids. And that was an issue in the past. So I know that, but I'm hearing what you're saying.
Yeah, or, or if as part of those surveys, if you could, even ask if, maybe 5th, 6th, I'm not quite there in parenting yet, so I guess I'm out of the loop, but, 5th, 6th, 7th, whenever, but, when you might not want your kid home alone yet, if there might be a need or desire for maybe a SAC room or, something for that age group even.
Right.
Because I think that could maybe be a
I know in the
deterrent
past we
for
had
those
very
individuals.
few kids at that age, and they felt really out of place with all the younger kids. So it
Sure,
was-
yeah, I can understand that.
yeah. One thing I want to remind everybody, and I know that Mr. Richards has asked about the special ed students and making sure that we're including them. We are including them, and we're also offering summer camp for our students with cognitive impairments too, and we're working on structuring that. So I didn't mean to leave that out of the presentation, but I want to make sure that we're clear that we are offering a program for our students in the cognitively impaired programs, all the way from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. So that is another option. Sorry, we left that out of the presentation.
Is this a free program, and are we able to offer it to out of district students as well? Is this for anchor-based registered students only?
It is a free program to students, and also transportation and the food service would be free to our students also. We want to make sure that we're offering it to our students first. So if we had outsiders, we could talk to those parents, but we want to make sure that they're not taking spots for our own students that need it first.
Absolutely, great.
Would that also be offered to our staff members if the staff member asking them to teach or whatever, that they could have their child enrolled in our program?
Yes.
Yeah, we certainly are going to need our staff to be willing to come.
Is that something, typically, offering more courses and more sessions this year, do we have trouble on a regular year filling those positions that we are going to anticipate? I mean, like we already said, aside from COVID and burnout, among everybody, that's going to be an even bigger uphill climb, or do you already have interest, or how does that look?
Normally we have the teaching staff consists of our literacy tutors for the majority of the camp time. We do have staff though that they regularly teach during the summer too. I'm not sure what to expect this year. It's a different breed. So I'm hoping that the fact that we're offering more money and the program is pretty much put together for us. So that's another positive, is that it's kind of mapped out already for a lot of our elementary programs, and at least. So I think that's a positive piece to it, and it's the I think that's another perk. So it's where Joe and I and Todd, we've been talking a lot about this, and until we get those surveys and see what the registration is, we're not sure what to expect right now.
We know when the surveys are going to be going out.
Very soon. They're already built. We just want to make sure that we're tweaking things. We wanted to present tonight first to get some feedback before we sent that out.
Looks like a great program.
Yeah, I don't see why we couldn't send them out this week. That was the plan.
Okay. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Okay, we just have a little bit of board business. We have to determine a superintendent salary range for our posting that went up last week. So the board members were provided by Mr. Silveri, our search consultant. He provided us with some documents about districts that we requested the superintendent salary information, and some that he considered maybe similar to Anchor Bay and in size and capacity. In addition, Mr. Rathbun obtained another document that was put together elsewhere with similar information as well. So there's a few different things, a few different documents and comparisons, as well as some some of the Chippewa Valley contract and just some samples for the board to have to look at, because most of us are new to this process. So that said, we wanted to kind of get a consensus for Mr. Silveri to just amend our job posting for candidates that may be interested. If any board members, I'm going to kind of just open the floor. Don't know that we need to have a motion per se, but maybe if we can determine that we've come to a consensus, and if anyone wants to make a motion just to make it a little bit more formal and official, I'd be open to that as well. So I'm going to open the floor for the board members to discuss any comments or suggestions going forward on the salary determination.
I would suggest 170,000 salary and then maybe a 5,000 annuity, and then I don't know how you word it to say that would be the offering, and then we could consider experience. If I can find a superintendent has exceptional experience, we would have a range to go. But I know when we looked at district like in Romeo, it was around 160 with a 5,000 annuity, and when I've looked at stuff on the Mackinac Center, like 170 would be kind of like a minimum, but again, it depends on, experience and backgrounds. That's what I would suggest as a starting point.
Okay.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking of just mimicking Romeo's. I mean, I'm okay with going 170, but why start any higher than you have to? It's all
Right.
going to be negotiated anyway.
I also looked at the Mackinac Center and, Romeo. I think we can have a range. So I think starting a little bit lower might be a better idea. In my opinion, maybe 160, and we have room to negotiate. Maybe 160 to 170 as our range, or even 175.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I think he was looking for maybe like a range, knowing that it would likely be negotiated depending on the candidate's experience. So, I mean, certainly we don't have to do that, but so looking at a range, just to throw my 2 cents, I would say, I like 160 to 170 or 165 to 170. I feel like, the one thing I want to take into account for our district that I want to put out there is we do tend to give, like it's been said, we tend to give raises similarly among groups, or try to. So, when we do a 2 or 3% raise, a 3% raise at the salary could quickly jump you up. And not that it may not be deserved, but we could quickly find ourselves at a topping out or a top level district quickly if finances come along. So I guess I'd prefer, and just knowing negotiation tactics, I think most will probably push for the higher end of a range if we give a range anyway.
Right.
So I guess I would look at 165 to 170 or 160 to 170. As far as the annuity, I'm not sure that we have, I think that could maybe just be a negotiated point as part of the contract later on. I don't know that we have to put that out there at this time.
Yeah, that's fine. I just know that annuity isn't offered by all districts, but it's also something that's, I guess we'd have to talk to the consultant, because sometimes that's again, you want to start maybe low and have somebody negotiate, but you want to be able to attract good people, so you can't lowball it too much. But I don't know if you put in the wording whether annuities or other benefits would be negotiable or not. The Romeo one, I think the 160,000 that was in the Mackinac Center is like a year to 2 years old. So that's why I suggested 170, but I don't have any druthers whether it's 165 or 170, so.
Right. The other thing I think, and it wasn't really clear, I know one of the board members asked if, the numbers that we were given were most likely the numbers, where their superintendents currently stand. So some of them, have been there already 5 years or or even longer in some cases, and some shorter. So take into account, you know, those numbers were not necessarily always the starting salary of those superintendents either. And of course, you know, negotiation based on experience could be taken into account as well. But
the idea of range shows that it is negotiable as opposed to just one salary.
Okay.
I personally would like to see a range of 160 to 170 listed. You know, certainly when these folks are working through our consultant and applying and having conversations, our consultant's probably sharing there is probably some other additional comp available, and whether that's the 5,000 as Mr. Middlestat suggested, or it's a car allowance or an entertainment allowance or whatever else is out there, that can all be negotiated, I think, on the backside.
So I'll make a motion that we propose a 160 to 170 as a starting point.
I'll second.
I'll third.
Okay, so a motion by Mr. Middlestat for a range of 160,000 to 170,000, and seconded by Ms. Knox. Do any other board members, Mr. Richards, Mr. Giroux, have any comments or?
I agree with you guys.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was also. You know, I think, you know, we've had some different emails back and forth on different salary ranges and things like that. So it's kind of where I was mentioning it.
All right.
Okay, so I will communicate that with Mr. Silveri.
So you want me to do the roll, Lisa?
Sure, go ahead and do the roll.
Sorry. Mr. Middlestat, yes. Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Richards, yes. Mr.
Yes.
Yes, and Mr. Giroux, yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Right, John?
That's right. You got
I was getting ahead of here, right in my, circling my yeses.
Okay, so the board now is going to move into closed session regarding a student discipline. So if I could have a motion, we will be reconvening. We will reconvene after the closed session. There will be open forum. And then we are having a board training workshop following, which the public is still welcome to watch, and then adjournment. But besides any motion that might be made based on the student hearing, there's no other further action planned at this time. Actually, if nobody disagrees, I'm going to go ahead and run the open forum first. I probably should have caught that earlier, but unless any board members object, I'm going to run the open forum first so that if parents want to participate and not stay for the closed session, that we can kind of do that for their convenience.
Lisa, do you want a motion to amend the agenda, or are you comfortable just moving it around?
You can make a motion if you'd like.
And I think the rules of order, if there's, the president can say if there's no objection, if nobody objects, she can go ahead and do that.
Very good, thank you.
Yep.
So if there are no objections, we'll go ahead with open forum first. I'm not hearing any. Mr. Sizemore, was there any submissions for the open forum?
There was, with the two people already spoke, which was Emma and Crystal Ortega.
Okay.
They spoke on the reconfirmation of learning plan. So did they have something else, you know, that?
Right. I don't see Emma on anymore. Crystal's hand is up, so we will go back to her.
Yeah, I got a big mouth. Sorry, guys. But I do want to thank the board, which has nothing to do with anything you guys just said. Ms. Berkmeyer, Mr. Richards, Mr. Green, Ms. Knox, you guys were very supportive in our fundraiser for the sports booster. So thank you guys for that. we doubled my goal. I won't share the dollar amount unless you want to know what it is. But thank you guys for that. But second to that, with the summer program that was just presented, I know there was a comment made in regards to the high school level and math. Mr. McDonald, I nominate Mr. Keeler to teach that math program if you want to get with him. But other than that, that would be the only other thing I would have to say. You guys are doing a great job, so thanks for the presentations. And again, I just wanted to thank you guys, Ms. Knox, if I didn't say that already. Thanks for your support, and you guys are doing a great job. So thank you for that. And I'm all done.
All right, thank you. And congratulations on your successful fundraiser. I have Stephanie Richards.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I brought this up in the past and I didn't get a clear answer. I think I got that it was in the progress of being worked on, but I want to bring it up again because it's still an issue. And so basically my complaint, and I do not stand alone in this complaint, is that Schoology and Power School do not communicate with one another. I don't know that assignments are missing until after, or even due until after via Power School. And if those two programs could link up, it would make it a lot easier on both parents and students. And if those two programs are not capable of linking up, then maybe we need to drop one and get something that can, or drop both of them. I don't know. Obviously, that's not something you're going to do mid-school year, but I think it's something that seriously needs to be looked at because, I think that virtual school brought a lot of light into that issue, but, even in person to person, it's an issue, and I think it needs to be resolved. It needs to go on that list of things that we need to look at. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your feedback. I'm not seeing any others.
Just Lisa, just a quick one. I would agree with Stephanie on that point. And Todd, maybe you can talk to the MISD, because I know they had a lot to do with trying to get Power School and other systems together, and just that would be an excellent project that I'm telling you, from an entrepreneur out there, if they could figure out how to do that, they could sell a lot of products. So I'm not quite sure if the ISD could take that on, but I would agree with Stephanie, that's a real pain. And it's bad for the teachers because, they're trying to do their best to link that stuff, and it's a real pain. So that would be a very efficient thing, and it'd be a positive thing for everyone for that case. I think the ISD should take the lead on that.
I don't want to call her out, but we did have an orientation with administration, and Mrs. Bonnick, I actually asked the same question, and I don't know if she'd feel comfortable. I mean, you're not prepared right now to answer that, but if you are, maybe shed a little light on that, because it was helpful to me when you spoke to me.
Yes, Power School and Schoology are linked, and they are linked through the ISD. So it is still a progress, and it is really also how teachers choose to use it. Interestingly enough, today we just reached out to the ISD to be a pilot school on another process that makes it even easier for our teachers. So we have teachers building things in tests and assessments in Performance Matters, and they can push them out through Schoology. The Schoology assessments are not as easy to use. So I guess I just want to let everyone know on the call that the two are linked. They're actually owned by the same company. So it's just a matter of how everyone is using it. Power School is the place to go for grades as a parent. That is the final resting place of grades. Schoology is more of a learning management system. So that's the daily type work. So I do think what I think is really happening is we need some more consistency on how our teachers are using it. And I say that not to put any more our teachers have come so far in such a short period of time. And we also have to remember that the backdrop of using Schoology originally was we weren't allowed to grade. So if we just kind of remember where we were literally 1 year ago today, and where we're getting to. But it's not to say I don't hear Mrs. Richards. I think I'm going to look specifically in her students' schedule so I can look at those teachers and see if maybe I can even problem solve right at that end. I mean, some teachers are using it very interchangeable. But again, those were teachers that had access to it and were using it probably well before we were kind of forced into doing what we're doing. So let me just say, we do have work to do. I hear you loud and clear. I know what things and challenges are still on the parent end, but they are linked, and the ISD does take the lead on that and does provide a lot of support and training. Does that answer it appropriately for right now? I can put more in writing as well.
Yeah, I think that was good. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Not having any other hands up. So, okay, at this time now we will go, I'll take a motion to go into closed session for a student discipline or expulsion hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Green, seconded by Ms. Knox. Can we call the roll?
Mr. Green,
Yes, sir.
Knox,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestat.
Okay, so the board will be moving to a closed session. We'll be back. And then the only remaining item on the agenda is the board training workshop, which you are welcome to view, and then adjournment. So we will be back shortly. Closed session. Can I have a motion to reconvene at 9 o'clock?
I'll make a
So-
motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Moses, seconded by Mr. Green. If we could call the roll.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Knox.
Yep.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestat, yes.
Okay. So we were in closed session discussing a student discipline hearing. And is there any board action to be taken following the closed session?
Madam President?
Sorry. I'll make a motion that we go with the recommendation of the principals and the assistant principal.
I second the motion.
Okay. I'll just amend that for student 5062. If that's okay with you, Mr. Moses.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So the
And what-
motion is
What kind of discipline is it? 10
for
days?
a 10-day suspension, confirming the recommendation made by our administration to adhere to the 10-day suspension for student 5062. And that was seconded by Ms. Knox. And we can go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestat, yes.
Okay. And the motion carries. All right, so now we're going to move into the leadership training that we have. Mr. Rathbun, do you want to introduce?
Yes, I'd be happy to. We have Mrs. Melissa Baker with us tonight. Melissa comes to us from the Metro Bureau, and she has a wealth of experience in this particular arena. And she will be presenting a PowerPoint tonight and covering several topics that we think are pertinent to our board. With that, I'll turn it over to Melissa.
Thanks, Todd. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, perfect.
Yes, yes.
Oh, so hold on a minute. Let me go escape real quick. Go back up to here. Sorry about that. So you all have had a big night already. Lots on your agenda. So I just wanted to share a little bit about what we're going to go through tonight. And I'm going to try to pace myself because I know you've already had a big evening. So we'll do some welcome and introductions. We'll share some of the input that was gathered from the survey that we put out. And then the goals for this session are to explore the characteristics of highly effective school boards, discuss the essentials of an effective school board superintendent team, stability of leadership and what the research tells us. And I want you to know it's also about stability of board as well as superintendents, and then communication and the Open Meetings Act. So are you all seeing my screen okay?
I am not seeing your screen. I only.
That would be a no.
You didn't see it?
No.
No,
Okay,
we just see you on camera.
Okay, well, that's not fun. Let's go back. I'm gonna escape and see if I can do share screen. I think they were gonna share the screen. Let's see if I can do that differently. Okay, I think they have to do multiple. Let's see now if you guys can see it. Let's see if you can see that. Oh, no, I don't want that one. I think they gave me a choice to share my screen. Sorry, guys, let me hold on 1 second. Oh, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Oh. So, just to share a little bit about me, I've been in public education for over 28 years. I was a principal elementary school teacher. I did every grade except first grade. So I'm not worthy of those teachers that help with those first grade reading skills. Principal, assistant superintendent, mostly in charge of HR and public relations. Deputy superintendent, curriculum was my passion, and then superintendent in Southline Community Schools as well. I retired a year ago in January pre-COVID. I don't think I ever would have probably done that had I known COVID was coming, because just all the changes that happened. But I always said there were two things I would love to do in retirement. Was one, to be the executive director for Metro Bureau, and the other was to work for the Michigan Department of Education too. So this position happened to open up, and I was lucky enough to get that position. So that's kind of my background. One of the things that I asked you all to reflect on is about why did you want to become a school board member? So I did send out some note-taking pages to you all. And I just ask that you reflect a little bit on the commonalities, kind of the thinking about why you want to become a school board member and some of the questions that we had. I don't want to share what I noticed yet, because I want you to reflect on these conversations first. And then I'll share what I noticed as well too. So why don't you take a moment and read this one first? I'm practicing my teacher wait time. Am I good? Can I move forward? Lisa, you're nodding. Am I good? Okay. Then what is the best thing about anchor-based school district? I love this. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Look at the next one. Good? Okay. And what is your hope for the future? So if you want to take a minute and reflect on anything, and then we'll share out a little bit about those 3 topics. The goal is that this will help for your focus for the future, as well as even your superintendent search. And I know it's late, so I don't want to move you too fast, but I also want to honor your time. So does anyone have any thoughts we want to start with on either of the 3?
Overall, we all seem to be on the same page, and we all have the same love of our community. We know how great it can be. It's just we need that, I don't know, that push, that direction, that leadership, something. And I think that we all know it's there. It's sounds corny, but there's magic here. We just have to make it happen. But it's encouraging to see that we're all right there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, almost to the T.
Magical?
Well, I was going to say magical, but other than that.
It is kind
But
of cool.
it works.
Have the same vision.
Anyone else? So it seems like you're future focused is what I'm hearing, which is a good thing. You know, I want to make sure, because we're pushing this out to everyone. There is one phrase that was in there, and I don't know if someone wants to speak to it tonight, but to think about the phrase unethical and immoral ways. That's a heavy phrase in today's world. Is that more blending into transparency, or is that more something to look for future again forward? That's one phrase that kind of stood out to me of like, ooh, do we need to define that differently? Do we need to think about that differently? Or is that just part of our future forward movement?
I think everybody here wants us to be forthcoming and transparent. whether it's however it's defined, I believe that's at the top of everybody here's list. And for the future of the school.
And just having listened to the board meeting tonight, having a caption of it, that, I mean, I have to say, I was very impressed with the conversations and that kind of transparency that was happening. So, okay, perfect. Anyone else? I don't want to cut anyone off. And again, this is just a beginning dialogue, and we can go back to some of these things as we talk about like communication planning and next steps, what you think is the best for your district too. So we can go back to some of these too later. Okay, so I wanted to touch on a little bit about research best practices. So the National School Boards Association, again, talks about 5 critical areas for school boards. So research shows that the more effective the board, the better the school district student performance. So, and again, it's also about obviously your administrators and how they are, but also the functioning of the school board. That's kind of why we're here tonight, to talk a little bit about that. So in every decision and every action, the school board governance role centers on improving student outcomes. That's the role of the school board. So I always think about like 3 big areas: hiring the superintendent, the budget, and policy. Those are your 3 big areas. But critical areas for high-level school boards, achieving school boards, are your vision, your accountability, and where you hold that accountability, policy and board operations, community leadership, and then your board superintendent relationships. And I'm going to kind of like umbrella that a little bit, because when I talk about board and superintendent relations, you're also putting under that umbrella, the superintendent reports to you, everyone else reports to the superintendent, but there's still a team. You're a team with the superintendent, and then there's that administrative team. So, so what I wanted to do is look at a little bit of what you all do. So first of all, the vision part, that first critical area. Effective school boards establish a clear vision with high expectations for quality teaching and learning that supports strong student outcomes. They establish a clear and consistent goals to move the district forward. So what you say, you have a strong vision. I love your vision. Educational excellence together. And then your mission is empowering all students to succeed in an ever-changing world. And honestly, have we ever seen an ever-changing world? We didn't expect the ever-changing world that you all signed up for and our teachers and administrators signed up for, but you have a very clear vision and mission about what you're about. Now, that can always change and refocus, but the ever-changing world part really stood out to me right now with the COVID-19 alone, has really put us that in the forefront. So just wanted to share a little bit about how you relate to the vision piece. And then accountability. Effective boards are accountable or accountability driven, spending less time on operational issues and more time focused on policies that improve student achievement. So again, superintendent reports to you, you create the policies, they're going to handle the administrative guidelines, and then you're all about student achievement and those things that are important. So if you look at your board policy, 2002, learning and achievement, the core function of the school district is to educate students to prepare them to become productive and responsible citizens and adults. All other policies and considerations are secondary to this objective. So again, very, very important that is your focus as a district. So you're following that piece. Policy and operations. Again, what the National School Board Association says, policy is how a board substantially exercises power to serve students through policy, and then vision is transformed into reality. So the board, and then again, the board is equally important in terms of budget. So again, anything that represents what you all believe is important, your budget's going to represent that too. So again, in terms of your board policy, a principal function of the board is to adopt bylaws and policies that are reasonable and necessary to guide the present and future board of this and the school district decision-making and operations. So that's really what your role is in terms of that. So a lot of times I think there is a confusion about like, what is the difference between policy and administrative guidelines? So policy, that's your work. That's what you approve. That's what you decide. So you're the who, you're the what and the why. You set the goals. And that's what helps you when you, example, tonight you went to a disciplinary hearing. That's what helps guide you in that decision-making in terms of what do we expect? And then the administrative guidelines, excuse me, that's the work of the superintendent and the administrator. So that's the how. So that's how you know the functions and the operations are going on and going on well. So it's going to provide the direction for the administrative team, and it's going to, you know, make those decisions that are important there. So I think that's really important for you all to realize too, that you all set the policy, and then the guidelines are going to come through that team. So your chief, I want to say chief officer, the superintendent and his team or her team, his team or her team coming soon, they're going to make those decisions and support the board policy that you adopt. And then your other really important role, especially right now, is public advocacy and community engagement. So it's how you share, you know, the community shares their concerns, you share their concerns, your community leadership, and how you build public support. So things that you all have done already that you know, how you advocate for your school and your students, how you get bond support, and then how you campaign for public education. So if you think about the School Finance Research Collaborative, that's a perfect example. So how are we trying to get more funding into our schools right now? And then another area, of course, of the 5, both the school board and superintendent have essential leadership roles that are interconnected but different. Effective school boards lead as a united team with the superintendent, each in their respective roles with strong collaboration and mutual trust. And again, you have a board policy that speaks to that. Your superintendent serves as the school district's chief administrator and is responsible for the development and the implementation of administrative regulations that give operational effect to the board policies. So again, just kind of going back to what we spoke of earlier, it's basically policy is set, and it's the role of the superintendent, central office team, and administrators to follow through with all of those expectations through the guidelines. So I want you to take a second. And again, I sent this out to you earlier. Kind of look through where you think you are as yourself and as a team with regard to vision, accountability, policy and board operations, community leadership, and then board superintendent relationships. That might be a tough one because I know you're getting ready to do a superintendent search. So you may not have a lot of thought about that one yet, which is very fair, but just give yourself a little time. We'll take a couple minutes just for you to think about that one as well. And then I'll ask for some feedback if people are comfortable. And Lisa, I'll ask for you when you think you're ready to move forward, okay?
Like we're probably good.
Good. Okay. Does anyone want to share any feedback about those areas?
I will. You know, I think, you know, our board has a lot of differences of opinion, but I do fully believe that at the end of the day, despite, you know, maybe our difference of opinions of how we might get somewhere or how to do it, I do think, you know, like our vision tends to be, you know, much more achieved on this ranking than some of the other things. So I would probably put our vision as maybe more like mostly achieved, or and in other areas, I think we would be more on the lower end of beginning to achieve. Board superintendent relationships, I can speak to myself. We have 2 new board members since January, but for those of us that were on the board prior and worked with another superintendent, I think for myself, I can say that I think, that there's better achievement there on both ends, probably on my own end as well as the superintendent's end. So, I think that maybe we're starting to see some improvement, which is kind of exemplified in how our meetings are running right now in comparison to before. And largely I attribute that to the superintendent, because obviously most of our board members, we have remained the same, and that's what's changed here. So I think I would give him credit in doing that.
So I would agree with the board superintendent relationships. I'm not 100% behind on the vision. I think the vision needs a lot of work. It's a great vision, but I believe if you walk through the halls of most of the schools, they wouldn't even know what our vision was. And just me being a kind of a coach and a guy that needs to be plastered everywhere. People need to buy in. If you're going to have a vision and have it mean anything, it needs to be lived. So when you're talking education excellence together, it's not just something said, it needs to be something lived, and the teachers need to feel that way, and the principals need to feel that way. And it needs to be painted on the walls. The students need to feel that way, but that's just me. And I think we're beginning to achieve that, but I really think it's just something that was posted on a website most of the time that most people didn't give a second look until, but that's just me. As far as accountability, we're moving along on that. Policy and board operations, that's pretty dry. I mean, a lot of that seems to cut up with the lawyers and the changing of the wording and coming up with the new stuff. I think we're doing fairly well there. And community leadership, we definitely need to improve. I think we need to listen to our community, and I think we're doing a better job of it. But I think we're probably in the partially achieved there, where we really need to bring them in and get everybody on board. But that's just where we're at.
I think I'd say is, as a board, we're probably really at the beginning of all those, mainly because of the last 2 years, roughly, we've turned over almost the whole board except for Mr. Middlestat. And I don't know if I would, not that I'm not saying that Mr. Rathbun hasn't made things better and more, he's doing great, but I think the last superintendent, there was a lot of preconceived notions of people when they came in, and that led to, there was no winning with the last 2 years, I guess I'd say, until the beginning of this year when we started with Mr. Rathbun. So I think what you have now is you have a board. Yes, there's some difference of opinions with people on this board, but they're all looking for what's best for the students of Anchor Bay and the parents and the community. And we're really looking to find ourselves as a board, is what I would say, is what all of our vision and accountability. We know what we want. We want good things for the kids. We want to be out there in the community. We want our superintendent to be this ideal human being that's going to come in and just, be an authentic, dynamic leader. So I think that's, we're going to learn through this year, doing things like this, doing the superintendent search. I think there's some long terms on this board with people that just came in. So I think it's going to be a great thing. I think it'll be a totally different looking board a year from now and 2 years from now, as far as where everybody's at. That's my opinion.
I would add on the policy and board operations is it's a very difficult situation to say that we're just going to do policy and we'll let the superintendent run the day-to-day. It's very as people, as citizens and having children in the district, you really want to make things happen fast. And what I've learned over the years, that it takes a little bit of patience and a little bit of time for that to occur. And quite often we want to interject ourselves. It's human nature. We want to interject ourselves and say, I got a better idea. Let's, Mr. Superintendent, do this, this, and this. So that's one of the difficulties for anyone on a board, particularly new board members, is just trying to understand your role and trying to put as much input into the process. But then again, the wording on the screen is pretty cut and dry that you showed, but in reality, it really isn't. So it's a real thing when you got to sit back as a board member and look at, should I be messing with this stuff, or should I let the superintendent try to do it and provide my input? So that's, again, it's all human nature, and it's a very difficult thing, especially when we want good things to happen fast, and you get frustrated and whatever. But I guess when you look at policy and board operations, that's a biggie that's difficult to make things happen. So it's my opinion over the years. And again, it took me a long time to figure it out. And again, we all want to do good things, but you got to be patient, I guess.
Well, and we'll get into this a little bit more. And I wish I had more time with you tonight, because I think we could have a deeper dive. And I know I don't want to fry you too much tonight, but I agree. The policy and board operations, that's your role. So you have one community member come up to you and say, I'm not happy about this, or a student discipline, decision. You rely on your board policy to do that. But you also have to rely on your administrators to make those recommendations to do what's best for all students. But it's hard, because it's not when you're dealing with children, it's not cars on a line. It's not always black and white. So those are the challenges that are very, very difficult. And I appreciate you for being very, very real that is a concern. And that's where conversations can happen in terms of, like, are there policy changes? Are there administrative within, I should say more within the administrative guidelines, some flexibility there that allows administrators to make some recommendations different to the board. So, but I guess my one point is, you all want to stay within the policy lane and let your administrators deal with that kind of administrative guideline piece, which is difficult. It's a difficult thing. So, but it's not black and white for sure. Anyone else? My other piece I want to share within the community leadership piece, what I heard tonight was the fact that your administrative team was going to survey both teachers and community with regard to summer school programming. That's a perfect example of community leadership. So they're going to bring that information and have that information too. So you're doing that. So there might be areas where you don't feel you're totally there yet, but there's some good things that I heard tonight as well too, in terms of what's going on in your district. Anyone else? Okay. So what I wanted to share here a little bit too, and I will provide this PowerPoint to you all, is kind of like the ideas of where kind of like the lane, like lack of a better phrase, kind of the lanes are. So the school board, in terms of vision, you adopt your mission, your vision, your strategic plan. And again, I have to ask the question, because that's one thing I did not research, if you have a strategic plan adopted yet, or district goals. I'm not sure if you have that. But that would be something really, really important for you all to do. So you keep that vision in the forefront, you make your policies to adopt that. And then the superintendent is like kind of the other part, again, the how, and the superintendent's team again. You ensure that they ensure that everything's working, they're following the strategic plan, they're giving you updates with regard to that, all those pieces. And then again, same thing with accountability. Ensures that the superintendent's evaluation includes accountability measure. So again, remember, that is your employee. That is your main employee. So you're going to decide the superintendent evaluation tool. You're going to decide the measures that you're measuring, the goal setting with the superintendent. Also supporting recommendations. So in front of the board, you're going to do the hiring. If there's something for dismissal or non-renewal, all those pieces, funding to support accountability. So again, tonight you spoke of the summer school program and other pieces. So what's the funding that's going to support what the superintendent's recommendation is, and his team, the curriculum team and the superintendent's going to bring a recommendation to you. You support the budget part of that piece too. So I'm kind of scanning through some of these. Policy and board operations. Again, you establish the policy, you approve the board policy, and then the superintendent is going to come up with the administrative guidelines. Oops, sorry guys. Community leadership. Again, a major focus that you all should be aware of, and any way the superintendent can help you come up with things that you want to share in terms of both, touchy, with regard to your positions, with regard to your legislators locally, as well as what do you want to say to the state, what do you say federally, all those pieces, and also obviously including like bond efforts, et cetera. And then your board superintendent relationship. So you're going to support the communication structure. The idea of no surprises is huge. And then model collaborations, because if everyone in the district sees you modeling trust, they're going to do the same. And that's the same for the superintendent. The superintendent should not be surprising you as well. So there should be nothing that comes up to you that you're not aware of. Now, again, there's things that come up in public comments that we have no control over. But in terms of pieces of information, superintendents should do the same with you. No surprises on either way. So I will give you one example. And I think it's fair. When there's a crisis going on, there were times that I got called as a superintendent from a board member that said, "Why didn't you tell me?" Well, because I was dealing with the crisis at that time. But as soon as I could, the board was the first to know, and then the community, and then, the staff, the community, et cetera. So we had a communication plan. So I'm assuming you all have a communication plan as well, but you also sometimes have to, as a board member, take a pause and realize if something goes on, especially with social media. So I'm just going to touch on that for a minute. We'll probably go back to that. There could be a student texting their parent, and it'd be on social media before you all can get to it. And sometimes you have to realize that the superintendent and or the cabinet could be dealing with that situation at that time. So we talk about transparency, which I know is so important for you all. But they can't deal with the board at that moment when they're dealing with, something just happened, a fight in the cafeteria at the high school, and everyone's taking pictures of it. And it's already out there. And as board members, you're saying, why didn't we know? Well, because we're dealing with the fight at the high school. We're dealing with that issue. We'll get to the board as soon as we can. So sometimes we have to think about what transparency looks like and how fast it can roll out, and be respectful. And again, that trust piece, that honesty piece, and know that that's going to happen, but also come up with your own plan as a district of what that might look like. So, but that stuff happens, and it happens more rapidly now because of social media, and kids can get stuff out faster than we can even kind of be there at times. Okay. Let's see. So I don't know if you want to take a pause and share any comments about that, or you just want me to kind of move forward a little bit about board superintendent relationships. Lisa, I'm going to take your lead.
Probably keep going. I think, in general, I know I'm working on that with Todd myself, but I'm also in a different role at this point than I've been before. So that probably comes with the territory some. I think it's something, honestly, that I think everybody wants. So I think it's something that we'll be working on going forward.
And again, as you're thinking about, a communication plan is a good thing about how you want that to roll out in terms of crisis pieces. I know that there is examples out there too, like about levels of conversations and levels of communication. So there's things that are out there that, you know, can support that too. So again, just want to touch on the board superintendent relationship, because I know you're moving into kind of thinking about, you know, what questions you want to ask when you're hiring a superintendent. So if the superintendent board leadership team establishes a shared vision of excellence, stays focused on the right mission, builds people's capacity to do mission critical work well, and reinforces cultural norms and core values that supports high levels of achievement for all, so will other people in the district. So again, it goes back to that idea of like, we all set the tone. You know, the board superintendent relationship really sets the tone. If the superintendent board leadership team demonstrates that character and ethics are important, so will others. So it's again, the idea that they're all watching us in terms of how we operate together. And again, the good lines of communication, working to find creative solutions, and models culture of caring, so will others. Effective leaders make a team sport. So, I mean, it's nothing new, but it's just the idea that we model, and that's what is represented other places too. So again, the most important relationship that you all have is with the superintendent. So be both sides, again, being professional, fair and objective, honest and open, and a team player. So again, questions going to the superintendent when you have a question, when you see something on a board agenda, it doesn't mean that you can't bring something up at the board meeting, but there's just no surprises. And again, sometimes things will come up that you didn't know ahead of time. And there's also nothing wrong with asking the question again to a superintendent at a board meeting that you already have the answer to show that you were doing your due diligence, especially with regard to budget. I can remember this happening often where someone would see potentially, you know, something coming on the bill pays, and like, we don't recognize this vendor. Well, we may not recognize that vendor at the board meeting if it came from an elementary school, for example. We can get that information beforehand, but it shows that you are doing your due diligence to ask that question at a board meeting. So just remembering those things too. And then these are just a couple recommendations from MASB in terms of relationship standards of practice. So let your strategic plan and yearly goals be your guide. So have a strategic plan, usually a 5-year plan, and then have reflections on that. I don't know if you've done some strategic planning. It's great to have a group of citizens, teachers, people that work on that, wherever you are in that, and the reflections on that plan, and that guides everything that you do in terms of, you know, usually it's about budget, it's about resources. Social emotional is going to be huge moving forward for everyone right now coming back from COVID. Obviously student achievement should be at the forefront, but those pieces. Remembering that only one employee reports to the board, that's the superintendent. So if you're not happy with other individuals within the organization, that's on the superintendent, but the superintendent only reports to you. Everyone else reports to the superintendent. Also, it's the superintendent that engages with those decision makings with you all. Board request for district information goes to the superintendent as best you can. And it sounds like you have a very, you know, again, these are guidelines. It sounds like you all have some great collegiality with the central office team, but making sure the superintendent is in the loop with regard to those conversations. And then individual board members have no authority to direct the superintendent. So there are requests that can happen, but in terms of direction, that comes as a group. So if there's something that you want as a group, that needs to happen at a meeting and say, this is what we want as a group. So it doesn't mean that you can't have support from the superintendent with regard to communication. And then communication from the superintendent should go to all board members. So I'm going to give another example. I often had conversations with the board president, especially with regard to student discipline issues that might be coming up, just like heads up. But then when it came to a true issue or a true conversation, everything went to the entire board. And so again, not knowing your operational structure or communication structure, there might be easy things like in terms of like Friday memos and things like that, which I believe you all have, communications from the superintendent. So you all get the same basic communication about what's going on. So like you knew I was coming tonight, that should be a communication that you all have. And then no surprising each other in public meetings. And again, that goes for everyone. And again, that doesn't mean that something comes up and you don't ask questions at that time. But if there's something that can be dealt with beforehand, it should be that way. And or if a community member comes up with something and you know it's coming, you give the superintendent and central office staff a heads up about that. The other part is utilizing a clear process for agenda setting. I'm sure that's through the board president, but that should happen as well. And then discussion should always be based on policy information versus the guideline piece too as well. So, and then I just want to again touch on a little bit of, because I think sometimes we don't give enough credibility to the fact that not only do we want stability of our superintendents, but we want stability of our board, because you all get to know each other better, you work together better, you understand the work. If you've gone through, being on a curriculum committee, or you've gone through being on a policy committee, you understand the work. So everyone wants the board and the superintendent team to last a long time. And there's research that talks about if there's over an 8-year to 10-year span, you've higher student achievement based on that commitment of both board and superintendents too. So I just put a little bit in there about the stability of leadership too, because it's really important, not only for the superintendent, but for the school board as well. Okay, before I go on to like kind of the drier part, is there any conversation that you all want to have? I know you're probably fried, but I just want to give you a chance to, anything else you want to share? Steve, you've been really quiet.
Yep.
All good? Okay. So I just want to touch on a little bit of the communications and the Open Meetings Act. This part here, just quickly. We've already seen some changes. Sorry, guys. With regard to the law, I don't know if you got the legal update about Open Meetings Act, so hopefully that was sent to you. We already know that from starting April 1st through April 19th, things change with regard to the Open Meetings Act. So if you have questions about that, let me know. But you do have the legal opinion from Collins and Baja with regard to that. So again, some of the things I'm sharing, I just want to make sure that you're always checking the changes that are occurring, especially with regard to the fact that, you have to start holding your meetings in person again, obviously after that time period, and allow for that virtual piece too, because we're still at that 25-person capacity too. So I just want to make sure you have that info. So basically, in terms of the Open Meetings Act, obviously is to promote governmental accountability, foster openness in government to enhance responsible decision-making. And then honestly, some of these pieces you already know, making sure everything's open to the public. And also with regard to whether you're making a decision or deliberation, making sure that's done in the public. And I think that's one of the toughest part about social media right now is really checking yourselves with regard to email, making sure you're not having conversations over email, as well as any other type of social media piece there too. So I just put a little bit in here, and I'm going to make sure you all get this PowerPoint as well too. I'm going to pass through these things. So frequently asked questions, when can a meeting be closed? I've included that on another slide. And then when can you all be together? You can be together in a social setting, just have to be really careful that you're not talking about anything with regard to the school district, no deliberation, those pieces. You can be at conferences and workshops, presentations by groups, all those pieces are fine. Again, just not having those conversations. Social or chance gatherings, so I think about like going to the football game. You're fine to be there together. And then political matters, again, making sure they're of a personal concern and not considered matters of public policy. Again, some of these are very cautious that you'd want to check with your own kind of legal firm with regard to that. I listed the 11 reasons that you can be in closed session here on this slide. So personnel matters, they always have a right to ask for being in closed, student discipline, which you did tonight, collective bargaining, all those kind of pieces there too. So I just kind of put that on there too for you all, but again, making sure that you have the information that you need to as well. And school boards to consider security planning too. That's really important as well, especially as we go back to school too, to make sure. But again, I would check with your own legal on these too. Your board policy 1002 talks about how you operate under the Open Meetings Act. And then it also talks about areas of where you are, you know, considering a quorum and how you're voting, all those pieces too there too. It also talks about, you know, something also important for a school board meeting is that your board policy does speak to how you limit a person's time to speak. And also the fact that you do not have, generally you don't respond to someone giving a comment. So, and that's a really tough thing to do when you're taking in public comments. Your board policy basically says that you're going to listen, take down the information, and you know, you're going to turn that over to administration to work through that information too. So you don't have to ever comment, and it says generally. So basically the idea is that you're not necessarily commenting on a public comment, you're just taking the information. And as board president, Lisa, I think you are the person that presides. So you can ask clarifying questions. They're supposed to address you for your board policy. And then that information is going to go to administration to address. And that's the expectation as well. I'm going to kind of go through this similar kind of information. It also talks about, you have another policy that talks about public complaints, 7005. That you welcome constructive criticism, and that again, the administration is going to address those issues and work through those as well too. Now, again, if it's a complaint about the superintendent, that's going to be yours and yours to figure out how to investigate. But otherwise, it's going to go back to the superintendent and they're going to address those concerns as well. So one of the things I kind of came up with is, you know, your board policy talks about what to do during a board meeting. So you have timelines for the speaker. Your board members will generally not directly respond during public comment portion. And all statements are to be directed to the presiding officer, which I believe is Lisa, the president. And so what are some suggested tools to use? Remind the audience of guidelines for participation. So verbally, you can do that at the beginning of the meeting, that this is how we work during public comments. And also on the participation form, which is something I found to be very valuable. We had that in the back of our forms when I was a superintendent. Rely on the presiding officer, and everyone then supports the guidelines. So, you know, again, Lisa would kind of work through the public comments and everyone else supports that. And to remind the participants that this idea, issue, or concern will be looked into by administration. So that's real important too. And then my favorite, outside of a board meeting. So these are things that happen to you all via email or written communications, social media, which is tough. I don't know if you have a what's happening in Anchor Bay kind of social media place, or at sporting events or your own child's social setting or the grocery store. But what do you want to do? So the first thing is obviously channeling community members to the right person, direct and share all ideas and concerns and information with the superintendent. So again, so there's that no surprise type piece. And then determine a spokesperson for the board who has collaborated with the superintendent. So it's really important that you all say, share the same message. So oftentimes you will get the same email from a parent, all of you. So who's going to be the person that responds to that? So making sure you have a clear communication plan with regard to that too. So any reflections or feedback on what was shared right there?
Much longer.
So I know your next major step then is to, your major role is to hire a superintendent. That's big. So any ways that we can help and support you in the future with regard to that, or ideas that you need, or communication, anything you need, we're here to support you. And I hope that most of all, anything that was shared tonight helps you plan for that superintendent search, because that's a big job.
Thank you, Melissa.
You are very welcome. And again, anything we could do to support you, let us know. And I know, John, you are in good hands with John Salvari. He will take good care of you and help you through this next process.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for sticking with us after all of our items on our agenda.
No worries. You're a great district.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that concludes our agenda for tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make the motion to adjourn.
Motion, Mr. Moses, seconded by Mr. Giroux. We can call the roll.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
See if somehow you got remuted there.
Mr. Giroux,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestate, yes.
Motion passes, and we will adjourn at 9:56. Everybody have a good evening.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.